Thank you. Just a quick one to everyone listening. If you want to find out more about the different Ragamali of the time and kind of dive further into this, Kamalpreet Singh Pardesi, also known as Sikhism in Snippets, has written a small but very interesting book on this topic that you can buy from his lulu.com website. Just moving then into the questions regarding your podcast, the Suraj podcast, there were two main questions. The first one was, do you have any plans to continue your podcast after the stories of Guru Hargobind Sahib Ji?
No plans as of yet. So we'd look to finish Guru Hargobind in the midsummer, which would be, we're recording this now in April 2022. So mid 2022, probably finishing up Guru Hargobind. I personally am completing my dissertation. I will be at that point, and that is going to be a busy period. But we are looking to continue at some point, certainly as the legacy project, the stories of Guru Gobind Singh. But yeah, I mean, I would throw this back at the community to say that, these type of projects require funding, they require support, and, with support, we can make this happen. But yeah, it has been a struggle to kind of keep the podcast going while teaching and while, doing my PhD. So we'll have to see how things work out. But as of yet, no plans to continue.
And then the next and probably most requested question was, will your translation work of the Suraj Prakash you've done so far or any that you do in the future be available in any other format, most specifically a book?
That I do have some good news, and I guess we can release that news here, is that there will be something coming out in regards to that. So basically a modern day Guru Blas of Guru Hargobind's life. We hope to have some illustrations. These illustrations are being already commissioned, detailed illustrations depicting, Guru Hargobind in battle, depicting Guru Hargobind's life, weddings, associates, all of this. So that is something in the works as well. So that will come out absolutely if everything goes as planned. And I do want to say that Guru Hargobind's stories in Suraj Prakash, if we cover all of them, which we will by mid 2022, that is a fifth of Suraj Prakash. That's it's over 20% of Suraj Prakash itself. Because Guru Hargobind, besides Guru Nanak Dev Ji, which you can count essentially his Guru period as when he was born until he passes away, Guru Hargobind is the longest reigning Guru besides Guru Nanak Dev Ji. So he has a lot of stories. Now in Suraj Prakash, so he's the longest reigning Guru besides Guru Nanak Dev Ji. But in Suraj Prakash, the most extensive component of Suraj Prakash is Guru Gobind Singh's Katha. There's Guru Gobind Singh stories in there. But Guru Hargobind is a second to that. So by doing this, we have covered like a fifth of the stories in Suraj Prakash. It would have taken us about 2 years to do that. And that actually makes about sense in regards to 20% in 2 years, because Santokh Singh himself took about 10 years to write the entire thing. Veer Singh also about 10 years to publish it. So I think we're trying to do on par with that. So yeah, so hopefully in the future we'll have more components coming out, but as of yet, no plans in regard to the other gurus. I would love to have time to do Guru Har Rai's Katha. His stories are so interesting in the sense of, his relation with Dara Shakol, his interest in medical sciences, and, taking care of animals and all this. Very fascinating. So hopefully, but yeah, I can't make any promises in regard to more stories just now at this point.
Thank you for that, and thank you for sharing that information on here. Considering how large and how deep Suraj Prakash is, why do you think it's not perhaps received the attention as other texts such as Prem Samarag or Gaur Sabha, some of these perhaps being more widely discussed?
English is the reason. Prem Samarag and Guru Sabha have been translated in English. Diaspora communities, even simple Punjabi becomes difficult, especially when it's embedded with, technical terminology. So you can very easily have a simple Punjabi sentence. You throw some terminology in there that's a little bit difficult, perhaps relating to the Sikh tradition, and it's not properly explained. It immediately stops people from accessing that material. But Prem Samarag and Guru Sabha, those I would say there are texts that have not received as much attention in the tradition prior to it having been translated into English. I think people knew about those texts. I think those texts were utilized in some sense, like Veer Singh quotes from it sometimes, but I don't think those texts were well known broadly prior to it becoming into English. So I think that's just the effect of where we're seating here now, where we're seated here, is that, you know, because these texts are very simple to read and, you know, they have some appeal to them, like Prem Samalik is just a wild text, like the type of things that it suggests in there. I think Prem Samalik is a real outlier as well in terms of the tradition, especially when you compare it to the other Rayatname from that time period. Not to say that, you know, it should be dismissed. I just think it's a really interesting text. I think people should definitely engage with it. Same with Guru Soba. But yeah, I just think it's a simple reason of, you know, it being in English and it also being kind of more condensed. Guru Soba, especially in terms of the history, where, you know, Suraj Prakash, I think through the efforts of the podcast and other people doing translations, I think, you know, that's going to spread more widely than these texts in the future.
As you mentioned, it was only once texts such as Prem Samarag and Gorsoba were translated into English that they entered the collective consciousness of the community. What are some of the perils with translation? And with your own podcast, how do you go about ensuring you're as close to the authentic meaning as possible?
It's difficult. It's always a struggle because you have to understand exactly how a word is going to be interpreted in, let's say, the language in which it's being translated to. So in English, you have to understand how people are going to interpret it now with the context of the culture today. So there are issues, and I've had, you know, issues where I struggle on certain translations. You know, I can give some examples of that now if you want, but I mean, on a really recent podcast, Guru Hargobind is explaining to Mata Kolna about the divine and about the true self, about, you know, Mata Kolna's passing away. Guru Hargobind is giving her updesh to say that, listen, you are not the body. You are something beyond the body. Like Paramatma is not Pork. He's not a man. He's not Istri. And he's not Napunsuk. Napunsuk, the word there was Kaliv, also means Bankarnu in Gurbani is called, which is, I put it in the podcast as eunuch. And this is in the like dictionaries, they'll say khosra or say hijra, and some of these words are deemed derogatory now in Punjabi. But essentially it means, in another definition in the dictionary, it said jisda joda na hobe, which doesn't have a mutual kind of a partner, you know. And I was thinking about, you know, what is the best word to use for that, because eunuch conveys like somebody can become a eunuch, like for example the guards of a harem, of a Mughal harem, so like where the women would reside the guards, the warriors there would be made eunuchs, as in they would be castrated. Yeah, which is, yeah. And
Insane.
yeah. It's completely insane. So but then, so like, how is the general population going to understand eunuch? Just that Jordan Ahove, which doesn't have an opposite or a partner, that really, to me, in my mind, suggests, oh, we could use the word non-binary for that. But then if we use non-binary for that, it's bringing in today's dialogue with non-binary and trans, which is going to bring with it information that doesn't necessarily relate to how the text was using it, and just in the way of the text pointing towards something which is not associated with gender, divine, which is not associated with any type of physical characteristic, right? So those notions of translation, I find I struggle with at times, and I do the best that I can. And if there are mistakes or faults that I have made, I'm sure there's plenty. We're all doing the best we can in terms of translation. But yeah, those instances where you have to put a word into today's culture, which may interpret it in a different light, I find that time consuming and also, you know, intellectually difficult. But you know, that is the whole process. And another thing as well is like conveying translation in a way which is not devoid of flavor. This is a problem with translation, is like, there was a Japanese scholar who was doing Sanskrit in like the 5th, 6th century. He was like, translation is chewing rice and then regurgitating it and feeding it to somebody, because you're basically taking out all the flavor and giving it back to somebody. And that's something you have to really, that I had to really think about when convey, because Suraj Prakash is so is so imbued with ras, with flavor, and it would be such a disservice to just convey, oh, he said this, he said that, he said that. So I try to be careful and mindful with my words to convey a similar feeling in today's culture of how, you know, language is used. So but it's a tough task. And yeah, I do the best I can. The music also, I hope, helps with that. But yeah, it's a really difficult task for translators. So for those reading or listening, please give us some kind of leeway and slack there.
So you've made it to the end of another podcast episode. I hope you really enjoyed this. I had an absolutely amazing time with Jvala. We've certainly got more podcasts planned for the future. If you have any questions, don't forget to leave them in the comments below. Equally, don't forget to like, comment, and share this with everyone you know. Otherwise than that, I will see you in the next one.